I was born in Vienna, Austria.
I was born in Saarbrücken, in the Saarland.
I was born, that time was Czechoslovakia.
And I was born in Hamburg, Germany on the 30th of March 1923.
I was born in a town in the Rhineland.
In the same town, Big Zadwürde.
Hamburg, Germany.
I had a wonderful childhood. I had everything a child needs. Loving parents, that's a picture of my family, and had a wonderful life.
Was good, we had it good, yeah. And we got along very well because we knew them and they knew us. We knew their grandfathers, their grandchildren, because people didn't move. They didn't have any money, so they stayed in one place. We knew everybody, and everybody knew us.
But I remember nothing negative in terms of my early childhood experience in Hamburg. I remember sledding down the streets and things of that nature, playing in coal yards. I did all the things that a kid should or should not do.
A maid, unbeknownst to my parents, on her day off, took me to see this parade, which I, as a 4-year-old, thought was fantastic. And some tall soldier, an SS man, took me on his shoulders so I could see what was going on. And before long, the crowd went crazy, and there were these, I thought, beautiful flags, red flags with a black cross in the middle, fluttering in the wind. And a man came through the streets in an open car with his arm held up high, and the crowd went wild. That was Hitler. And I came home with the maid, and all the neighboring houses had not only flags draped from their windows, but great big fat candles flickering on the windowsills, except ours. And I could not understand my parents' lack of enthusiasm, which is an understatement.
You know, when I was born, Germany still had a democracy. And by 1933, it had become a dictatorship, because after the First World War, there was not enough food, there was great unemployment. Then came the Depression. Hitler tried to blame the Jewish people for the Depression. They are to blame for it. And life became ever more difficult. There was the boycott of 1933, where all Jewish businesses were boycotted with decals on the windows and signs in the street, "Don't buy from Jews, they are our enemy, they are to blame for everything that went wrong." And life became more difficult.
I knew that we were not the same kind of German citizens as everybody else. I had a sense of that. You couldn't help but have a sense like that.
It was in 1938 that we were sitting on the stoop on the street, about 5-6 friends of mine, when 2 other fellows came in. One of them had the Hitler Youth uniform on. They were brothers. And he said good hello to everybody, but not to me. And when I stretched out my arm, he said, "What are you still doing here? You belong to Palestine." We had a kind of a fist fight right now. Then I went upstairs to my house and never went onto the street again to play with my friends.
Hitler marched into Austria on March 13, 1938. And they were told, the army, the Wehrmacht, not to oppose when they marched in. And they didn't, they just welcomed them with open arms. And that was the end of my childhood, the way I knew it. overnight you become a non-person. You have no rights. You couldn't go to school, couldn't go to a movie, couldn't even sit on the bench in the park. I mean, Jews lived in Austria for hundreds of years. They were pillars of the community. And overnight, people changed. That was so hard to understand.
The Gentile kids, they was hitting us. They couldn't even go out. The Jews, they was hitting us all the time, you know?
We were called names. Some of the kids were beaten up. We couldn't have any Gentile friends. Neither did they dare associate with us.
People disappeared. People left the house. They were beaten up or they never came back. Of course, then was Kristallnacht, the night of the broken glass. That was in 1938. They came into our home, arrested my father, who ended up in Dachau concentration camp, helped themselves to whatever they want. Now, you'll think you called the police. You couldn't, because they were one of them. There was absolutely nothing you could do. I remember my sister and I were hiding and were hoping that they're not going to hurt my mother. And of course, she was hysterical when they took my father away.
I went to work in the morning and came by stores which was damaged. The windows were all broken in. The people ran in and out, stealing the goods. And I came to my office and I was told, go home. We have a big problem here. There is no more company. The company was taken over by the next person who was an Aryan person in the firm.
I went to school like every morning, Jewish school, obviously. And my friends looked at me and said, don't you know what's going on? I said, what's going on? I don't know. So they were sitting there actually in tears because their fathers had already been arrested and taken away. 300,000 Jewish men were arrested and taken to concentration camps. 100 of them were beaten to death, heart attacks, suicide, you name it. It was a very, very, you can't even describe the feeling.
And really, that was the beginning of the Shoah, Kristallnacht.
I was not conscious of the Nazi danger until October 28, 1938, when they picked us up in the morning. And from that point on, our life was so dramatically changed that I knew that this is a whole new world. They separated mothers and children from fathers. They had taken us to the police station on that day, October 28, 38. That night, they then reunited us at the railroad station, and that's when we were shipped off to Poland.
I was called into the Logen house. My mother came with me and pleaded with the Gestapo that I was only half Jewish and so far. The Gestapo said that they would look into it and send me back home. In the meantime, my girlfriend, a Jewish person, was also in this transport, and all other friends of mine. I said eventually goodbye to my girlfriend and the others, where these transports left for Minsk. From 1,100 persons, 8 people came home. I received through the mail a postcard said, you have been declared as equal to full Jewish person. This card I burned, and I acted as if I never received it.
Well, we were all rounded up with the families together. We were there 6 weeks. No food, we were hungry.
So in 1944, all of a sudden they took us to a ghetto.
Then they got the trains, those boxcars, you know, with the cattle trains, you know, and we couldn't run no place. We were surrounded with police and soldiers. So they rounded up and they pushed in so many people in those boxcars. There was no room. We were all sitting like this, you know, squeezed in.
They took us to the station and they pushed us in a cattle train. No, I can't talk about it. And we were standing on top of each other and no water, no nothing. We went for 3 days on that cattle train. And I hear even the train, the train, how it went.
We didn't know anything what was going on. And we knew they were losing the war, but we didn't think they were going to kill us because they were losing the war already that time.
And people were panicked in the cattle train because they locked us in there, you know. No bathroom, no water, no nothing. Took us 3 days till we arrived to Auschwitz.
Hitler waited. How will the world react to what he has done? The world was quiet, so Hitler knew he can do what he wants to do, and he surely did it.
Then the trains, they stopped, they went in to Auschwitz, and then they didn't let us out right away. They waited till it got dark. And they said, everybody out from the boxcars, you know.
Then when finally they opened the cattle train, they didn't like animals rushing people off right away from the train, from the cattle train. People were sick, they couldn't move, they fell, you know. And then when we went off, they put you left and right. I had a younger sister, and they put my younger sister to the left, and my mother held her hand, and she wanted to go with her, wherever they took her. And I was on the right with my sister. So the assessment saw that my mother is the mother from the child. And they grabbed my mother and he saved her. So they pushed her to our side. They killed my sister, but my mother was alive. And my father never came back from Auschwitz either. Then when we went to Auschwitz, we were 6 children, we went all together.
We were taken to a concentration camp called Gurs, G-U-R-S, and we were incarcerated.
And of course, the view of Gurs, this sea of barracks, you know, sort of silvery, you know, the star paper silvery in the sunlight, and you know, getting closer to it, realizing the barbed wire, and then being separated, my father and my cousin to one area, and the rest of us, you know, the 5 women being sent to another area, and we arrived in Gurs. And Gurs, defies description. It's in this huge flat area. The soil is pure clay. Nothing grows there.
Because it rains all the time, the area was totally deforested, and we lived in mud. We also lived with rats and mice and fleas and lice. We had a zoo around ourselves.
I was born February 27th, 1942, in Westerbork, Holland. So they utilized Westerbork as a transportation camp where they transported the Western Jews through Westerbork eastward. When they ran out of Western Jews and Dutch Jews, they cannibalized the Jews in Westerbork. So in March 44, my brothers and I and my mother went to a place called Ravensbrück in north central Germany.
The train left the Hamburg railroad station and then moved east to the Polish border.
On the railway platform, we were directed to walk in the direction that they wanted us to walk. I don't think most of us had any idea where we were going. The assumption was we were walking to the frontier, but most of us had no idea, A, what the frontier meant, and B, where it was. So from a 10-year-old perspective, there was this long line of people. We saw one man get up and just run for it. So we all ran with it. We just followed him. So we ended up on the other side of no man's land, meaning in the Polish side, completely exhausted, completely petrified, totally ignorant of what was going to happen next.
Auschwitz was huge, big, and there was a building there. They took him to take a shower, and it was dark. But I saw the building because I saw next to the building the big fire, you know. And we still didn't know what was going on. It was dark there. And then I looked. I saw when they took out from that shower building naked bodies and they threw in the fire burning. Little children, bigger people. And I said to the people, "Don't you see anything?" "No." I said, "Just look there. They're burning people." That's when I found out. Told us took us in, take a shower. We got undressed. They said, "Just keep the shoes and the belt." And they gave us the striped pajamas, you know. Then they gave us numbers, you know, everybody numbers, all night, you know. Then I saw my brother from the other building. He was in a separate group. Then I said to my brother, come. He said, "I'm scared." Then they sent me to a working camp. And my brother they sent to a different working camp, and I never saw him again.
We were brought into a barrack. Theresienstadt was a very unusual camp. It was called a ghetto and not a concentration camp at that time. And we had our own work office, who assigned work, what do you call it? This job was about these little openings we had to close up with cement and bricks in order to make this an air raid shelter. I worked on that about 2 weeks when somebody said, "You know, I think they're building a gas chamber here. We are building a gas chamber." "What are you talking about? This is unbelievable. What you're talking?" "Yes, I think they will gas us in here." Nobody believed this, what this person said.
In Auschwitz, we didn't do anything, just lying there in that bed, you know. At 3 o'clock, we had to go outside, standing appel. In the morning, finally, they gave us a molded slice of bread with a little jam on it. That was our breakfast. And then, so then every morning this Dr. Mengelen walked to see us. We stayed up from 3 till about 7, 8 o'clock, all night long. And he came always with some officers behind him, And he always picked people, and they all went to the fire there to be killed, And he always used to come back. We had young kids with us too, younger than I. And he always announced, who wants to see their parents? They would take to meet the parents, It just happened I was with one neighbor's person, and she had 2 younger sisters. One was 12 and 14. And she was worried about the kids. And when he came and he said that, so she said, maybe you should go and stay with mine, Dad. And she gave her away her kids, and they never came back. Every day he came. Matter of fact, I went to the museum here in New York, and I saw this picture. I recognized him. We filmed it, that's it, and we went on living, that's it.
Life in the camp, we slept on the floor, we are given some straw, eventually some cotton sacks to put the straw in. And food was more than scarce. And some people died of starvation.
The foreman from that group, he used to sneak in and beat us. He was a racist, the foreman there who watched those Polish people. He came with a stick, he beat me.
Once I was beat up so bad I couldn't even tell you. And when we get close to the gate, the assessment was standing at the gate, and he right away saw me. And he pointed to me, I should come out. He had a very long whip, and he started to hit me like crazy. I always fell, showed me get up. And after that, when I was beating up, he put me in a jail too yet.
Yeah, in January, the Russians were closing in. And they, Germans, they rounded up everybody. We're gonna go march to Germany. Nobody knew that was a dead march. But I didn't go, and there was another boy from my city, I knew him, and he had a brother with him. The brother said, let's go on a march, because we heard that they burned down the hospitals, That's what I used to do. But I didn't care because it was cold and I was sick. And this friend too, he said to his brother, you go, at least you'll survive. I want to die here, We didn't care, What happened, they killed those. It was a dead march. Then a few days later, the Russian army came.
One day, we saw smoke at the SS accommodations coming up. They were burning papers. We saw papers coming up, flying up into the air in the flames. They were burning the evidence, all evidence. And eventually, without that we knew, they flew. They ran away. We didn't know yet. And then the Russians came, and we were liberated.
They looked at us, and they left, because there was still the war. They were fighting the war. So we were there. 4 days later, they came, and they gave us food.
At the time, the British entered the camp. And my mother told my brothers, do not eat the food from the soldiers. I don't know how she knew that. But she just told them, don't eat the food from the soldiers. And the soldiers, meaning well, gave them hard food like chocolate, whatever they had. And their stomachs could not tolerate it. But my mother, she really was truly unbelievable.
The story of his liberation, actually it occurred probably April 28th or 29th. He was on a train, of all things. He was on a train that was on its way to I don't know where, and the train, the engine, the locomotive was bombed, and the train was disabled. It was American forces. They pried the cattle cars open, and the way he used to tell the story was, first they waited for all of the bodies to fall out. And then once the bodies all fell out, they all jumped out of the train, and they ran away. And he ran, he spent one night, I believe he would say that he spent one night in a farmhouse with several of his other escapees. So he was among the first of that group to be liberated.
We came home from work. We didn't go back to the camp. We walked on a highway, and the German people was watching us. We was just walking. We didn't know what's going on. And all of a sudden, we're looking back, all the Germans, they disappeared. We was free, nobody was watching us. We was on a highway, you didn't see any houses, nothing, just a flat thing. And all of a sudden, we see trucks are coming with the Russian soldiers. And then we realize they're gonna free us. They didn't know who we are because we looked like crazy people. No hair, with the striped dresses, freezing. So all of a sudden, from nowhere, one soldier came in the front. He's telling for us, I'm who? I didn't even know what it meant that time. And he was a Jewish soldier.
Yeah, we found out there was a train going. We were already in Hungary that time, but we had to go back, and it was at night. So we arrived 12 o'clock midnight. It was maybe 2 miles from where I lived. So it was walk in the morning. And then the governor saw me, but he was no more governor because the Russian communists took over. So he said to me, he asked me if anybody was alive. I said, no. Then he said to me, come to my house. Your father left $1,000. So I gave it to him. And we were able to get mail from America, from my uncle. And right away, he sent a telegram. Right away, he's gonna help us. He sponsored us to come to America. I came in 1947.
And the guide took us across the border. Now, what was the border there? A little stream made the border between France and Switzerland. So he carried us across the water so we wouldn't be wet, told us which direction we have to walk in order to get the streetcar to go into Geneva, gave us some Swiss money so we could pay our fare, and we made it.
The UNRWA had arranged a transportation of so-called displaced persons who had been in concentration camps in Germany to America. We went on a troop transport ship to America. Again, I was sitting on the third floor of a 3-bedded room, but this one was wonderful, and the food was excellent, which we had to take in standing, like the soldiers apparently had in the basement of the ship. We arrived in America and saw the Statue of Liberty.
I remember when the war was over and the newsreels came out of the British and the American and the Russian liberating the camps, and we saw all those dead bodies. I said, well, it could be my parents. We had no idea. But they took 4 months. We got a letter from the Red Cross. I was afraid to open it because it means either they're dead or alive. They went to hell but survived. So I came to the United States in 1947. My brother and sister stayed in England. But in all those years, I've gone back, and they've come here visiting.
Being a child of a survivor, of 2 survivors, it didn't really sink in until much later. I remember when I was 12, and that's when I said, how come I don't have, because everybody's going Thanksgiving and all these holidays, how come we don't have grandparents? So my mother's answer was that she just said that they were killed. They died. No, they died.
My father didn't talk about the DP camp very much. I had on my own joined a group of children of survivors. The name of the group was the Generation After, and I started to go to meetings, and I educated myself largely about the Holocaust, and I guess one day I just asked my parents about it. I was the catalyst. He was really like a spigot. He went from never saying a word to you couldn't get him to shut up. He had so much to say.
And my mother said her father suddenly burst out with, who will tell our story? Who will tell what happened to us? Who will tell of our suffering? Who will tell of our despair? And my mother made him a promise right then and there that if she survived, if she lived, she would tell the story. And so in the year 2000, my mother's book, Our Tomorrows Never Came, was published by Fordham University Press. But that was the promise that my mother had made to her father when he said, who will tell of our despair and all that? And she said, she'll do it.
I want they should remember what we went through. We lost 6 million people, innocent people. We was innocent. What did I do? Nothing. Only because I'm Jewish. That's it. But thank God I'm here. My kids were born here. That was the best thing to me.
Me personally, love life, enjoy every day, be nice to your neighbor, be nice, be kind. If I had one message I'd like people to do, is to be kind. I think that would be the message.
The Holocaust started with words, with hate, and with words, with bullying. Telling the Jew to get off the sidewalk and stand in the street is bullying, and it's the beginning.
Talk to people, respect everyone, learn about them, learn about other cultures. learn about the world. You've got to learn, because we were brought up with hate. And not respect other people, and look down on people. And in this country, it's so wonderful. You can learn about everyone, no matter how old you are. You can always learn. And I think that's our solution.
As for how to prevent hatred, I think this center does a good job of presenting viciousness and how destructive it is. And it's a huge challenge because, for example, my students, the majority of them didn't know about World War II in Europe. Then again, I didn't know about what their hell was in their countries. So if they come here and they're educated here to understand how destructive it is to hate. In the midst of all hell, there are extraordinary people who, without questioning their own safety, will come out and do what is the right thing, who don't question, who don't hesitate. They only know in order to do the right thing, you have to act in accordance to what your heart tells you immediately. That happened to us several times, and that's why I'm here. That's why my family was here.
Well, I have only 2 words. Never again.
It should never happen again. Should never happen again.
And then if you remember history, then maybe you won't repeat it. Except she knows. She would say, a lot of the Holocaust survivors would end their speech with never again, you hope it never happens again. My mother ended hers with saying, no, it has happened again. She's sorry. She knows it's happened again. But you still have to keep trying.